I walked into that house as Rachel's husband. I walked out as a man who finally stopped lying to himself. The room was loud enough for her mask to slip, and quiet enough inside me that I felt it crack. I'm Evan Callahan, 36, the kind of man who doesn't need his name repeated at parties because I'm usually the one standing in the corner, keeping the peace. I never expected my marriage to end in a stranger's living room, but endings don't really care about expectations. They show up where they want. Rachel insisted I come. "It'll be fun," she said, which should have been my first warning. Rachel doesn't use the word fun unless she needs an audience. We walked in together, but that's about where the togetherness ended. The place was packed. Too many people, too much music, too much artificial laughter. She squeezed my arm like she had to remind herself I existed, then let go the moment someone she knew waved from across the room. 5 minutes in, she was already in performance mode. Drink in hand, smile too wide, shoulders pushed back like she was auditioning for attention. I watched her cut through the crowd the way she always did when she wanted to be seen. Most of the people cheering her on didn't know her well enough to see the cracks. I did. I'd lived with them. Across the room, she tossed her hair and leaned into some guy's joke. He said something stupid. I could tell by the way he puffed his chest afterward, and she laughed like she owed him something. That laugh used to mean something. Now it was currency. Then she looked over at me. Not lovingly. Not even neutrally. No, she looked at me like I was background noise. She raised her voice just enough for the people around her to hear. "Evan's here because he doesn't know how to have fun." She smirked. "He's steady. Predictable. Kind of boring." A woman standing next to her snorted. The guy she'd been entertaining smiled like he'd won something. Rachel kept going. "My ex was wild. Evan's the opposite. Reliable, I guess. But God, sometimes I feel like I'm married to a calendar." Someone asked, "Does he mind you saying that?" She shrugged. "He'll get over it. He always does." That line hit harder than the rest. Not because it surprised me, but because she said it so naturally. Like she'd practiced it. Like it was a private truth she finally got to air out in public. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. I didn't roll my shoulders or fake a laugh or try to compete with whatever version of masculinity she thought she was missing. I just walked away. Outside, the air was cold enough to clear my head. I stood on the porch, hands in my pockets, listening to the muffled thump of music behind me. No anger, no shaking hands, just silence, steady, heavy, honest. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. That silence was the first crack in the foundation. Inside, the party kept spinning. People kept drinking. Rachel kept performing. But something in me had shifted. Not dramatically, not violently, just decisively. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a performance I'd stopped participating in. I stayed outside until the cold started to feel normal, like something I could live in. When I finally walked back in, Rachel barely noticed. She was mid-story, telling someone how overly serious I could be, how I overthink everything. Comparing me again to some fictional version of her past she liked to resurrect whenever she needed attention. People laughed. She laughed louder. I didn't feel humiliation the way most men would describe it. It wasn't hot or sharp. It was quiet, dull, familiar. The kind of humiliation you get used to when you've been carrying someone else's ego on your back for too long. I didn't confront her, didn't correct her, didn't pull her aside and demand respect. I'd done versions of that in the past, and all it ever earned me was temporary peace. Instead, I let her talk, because for the first time, I realized I wasn't trying to fix anything. I was observing it, like a man watching the slow collapse of a building he already knew had faulty wiring. When we finally left the party, she stumbled a little, leaning on me like it was my privilege to hold her up. I guided her into the car, closed the door gently, and drove home in a silence she was too drunk to notice. But I noticed, and I didn't fill it. That silence wasn't anger. It was detachment. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. Back at the party, after her little performance, Rachel drifted away again. This time, it wasn't toward a conversation circle or the kitchen. She slipped down the hallway like someone following a script. I stayed where I was, arms crossed, breathing steady, not pretending to mingle, not pretending to be the amused husband waiting for his wife to stop entertaining strangers. I checked the time. 11:18 p.m. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No sign of her. Most husbands would have stormed down the hall. Some would have started a scene. I wasn't one of them. I've learned that chasing someone who hides from you only hides the truth longer. At the 15-minute mark, I walked toward the hallway. Calm steps. No tension in the shoulders. Just clarity. The hallway was dim. 3 doors. Bathroom, guest room, office. I didn't hear anything behind any of them. I knocked once on the bathroom door. Polite, controlled. No answer. I didn't knock again. Didn't call her name. Didn't try to guess which door she was behind. I turned around and walked back to the living room, sat on the arm of a couch and waited. 30 minutes is a long time when you're sober and watching everything. At exactly the half-hour mark, she reappeared. Her hair was slightly messed, like she'd run her fingers through it too fast. Her face was flushed. Not the kind that comes from dancing or laughing, but the kind that comes from rushing, from nerves, from trying to look normal. Then she came closer, leaning into me, and that's when I smelled it. Not the cologne I wore, not even a scent similar. It was heavier, sharper, someone else's. She didn't notice my reaction because I didn't give her one. She just smiled, sloppy from drinking, and tried to lace her arm around mine. "Hey!" she whispered, like she was trying to reset the night by pretending nothing had happened. I didn't answer. She stepped closer, breath warm and uneven. "Don't worry," she mumbled, barely getting the words out. "He said he'd delete it." Then she laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from thinking you're whispering into a pillow, not your husband's ear. She didn't even realize what she'd said, didn't realize which words slipped, didn't realize she'd confirmed everything I'd quietly suspected. She steadied herself on my arm. "Evan, you're so serious tonight," she slurred. "Relax, relax. That word is different when you're the only sober person in the room." I didn't confront her, didn't drag her outside, didn't demand names or explanations. I just nodded once, a calm, controlled gesture she didn't understand, and said, "Thank you." She blinked, confused. "For what?" "To be honest," I said. She didn't get it. She just laughed again and stumbled toward the kitchen, waving like everything was normal. But for me, that was the moment her performance ended. Her absence had said enough. Her return said the rest. And that whispered line, that accidental confession, sealed it. I didn't need evidence. I didn't want a story. I didn't need to know who he was. The truth wasn't in the details. It was in her behavior. She disappeared for half an hour. In the cologne on her skin. In the sentence she didn't remember saying. That night didn't surprise me. Clarified me. Some men explode when they realize the truth. Some drown in it. I just accepted it. When we finally left the party an hour later, she leaned on me again. I guided her to the car, steady, calm, feeling like I'd just watched the last piece of a long puzzle click into place. She passed out halfway home, and for once in my life, I didn't reach for the radio to break the silence. I let it sit between us, heavy and honest, the kind of silence that marks the beginning of the end. The morning after the party started with the sound of Rachel groaning into the pillow. I was already up, already showered, already sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee cooling between my hands. I slept fine. She hadn't. When she finally walked into the kitchen, she looked like someone trying to outrun her own skull. Hair tangled, eyes bloodshot, one hand gripping the counter like she needed it to stay upright. "Morning," she murmured, voice thin. I nodded. "Morning." She squinted at me, expecting warmth or irritation, something she could work with. Instead, she got nothing. My calm didn't fit the script she usually relied on. She poured water, drank half of it in one go, set the glass down too hard, winced at the sound. Then she looked at me again, longer this time, searching for clues in my face. "Did I say anything stupid last night?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I took a slow sip of coffee, set the mug down, watched the steam thin into the air. You drank a lot, I said. People say things. The way her expression shifted, eyes widening a fraction, shoulders tightening, told me she heard more in my words than I said. Her memory wasn't gone, just scrambled. She rubbed her temples. I remember parts. Some parts. She watched me again. You're being quiet. I'm thinking, I said. About what? I didn't answer. Silence again, the clean kind, the kind you don't sharpen or soften. Her breathing changed. She looked down at her hands, then back up. Did I say something? Did I don't know. Embarrass myself. You were drunk, I said. You tell me. I wasn't playing games with her. I wasn't dangling accusations. I was letting her own mind do what it always does when guilt and fear are left alone in a room together. Multiply. Her fingers tapped the counter, restless. Evan, seriously, if I said something dumb, just tell me. You don't remember? I asked. She swallowed. Not everything. That's something you'll have to figure out, I told her. Her eyes flicked with panic. A small movement, but noticeable. This wasn't me being cold. This was me being steady in a way she wasn't used to. She tried again. Did something happen? Yes, I said. You drank too much. Is that all? You tell me. And there it was, the first real crack. She paused too long, looked away too fast. People forget their words, but they never forget the fear that follows the wrong ones. As she tried to piece the night together, her breathing became shallow. Not dramatic, not loud, just the kind of breath people take when they're trying not to panic. She sat across from me, elbows on the table. Evan, what did I say? I remember going down the hallway. I remember talking to someone, and then I remember coming back to you, but it's fuzzy. She watched my face like it was a mirror she needed to read. Do you remember the car ride home? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Not really. Do you remember anything you whispered to me? She froze. That was the moment the fear landed. Not recognition, just fear. No, she whispered. Did I say something bad? You're asking the wrong person, I said. You're the one who said it. She stared at me with a kind of dawning dread, like someone realizing the cliff they thought they stepped back from is actually beneath their feet. Evan, please, just tell me what I said. I shook my head. If you don't remember it, you don't get to rewrite it. Her face tightened. Panic trying to turn into frustration, but the hangover muted both. This isn't fair, she said. Fairness wasn't a factor last night, I replied. She flinched, subtle but real. The rest of the morning moved in fragments. Rachel pacing. Rachel drinking more water. Rachel hovering near me, trying to study my silence like it had answers written on it. I didn't snap. I didn't comfort her. I didn't accuse her. I just stayed steady. And that steadiness ruined her more than any anger could. Because she didn't need me to tell her what she said. Her fear did that for her. She knew there was something. She just didn't know how much of it I knew. And uncertainty is a liar's worst morning after. By noon, she was pale, shaky, quiet. By 1, she was afraid to be in the same room as me. And by 2, I realized the truth. I didn't need to remind her of what she said. Her memory was already coming back, piece by jagged piece. And she was terrified of what would land next. The shift happened around 3 o'clock. 1 minute she was pacing the hallway, rubbing her temples like she was still fighting the headache. The next, she darted into the bedroom with a sudden purpose that didn't match someone recovering from a rough night. I stayed at the kitchen table. Same chair, same steady posture. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. A few minutes later, I heard drawers opening too fast. Zippers. The heavy thud of her purse being dumped onto the bed. Then the rustle of receipts, makeup, loose change. All of it thrown around like she was searching for something she wasn't sure existed. She muttered to herself. Not words I could make out. Just low, frantic noise. Then came the first sign. Her footsteps approached the kitchen, abrupt and uncertain. Evan? She asked from the doorway. I didn't look up immediately. I turned a page in the newspaper I wasn't actually reading. Then I raised my eyes. She was pale again, eyes jittery, hands tight around her phone. Yes, I said. She swallowed. Did anyone talk to you last night? About me? No. Are you sure? Yes. Her throat tightened. Did someone show you something? Or say something? You seem to have a lot of theories, I said. That landed harder than anything else I'd said all morning. She stepped back like the air between us suddenly thickened. Then she retreated into the hallway again. A minute later, the frantic searching resumed. Louder this time. She tore through her purse again even though she'd already emptied it. I heard her checking jacket pockets, shaking clothes, rummaging through her drawers like she was looking for a lost passport, not a hangover memory. I stayed seated, calm, letting her spiral. After a while, she reappeared, holding her phone like it was a bomb she didn't know how to deactivate. Evan, she said, voice thin and trembling. Can I ask you something honestly? You can ask, I said. She hesitated. Did I take any pictures last night? Or, did anyone take pictures of me? In the hallway, there it was, the wrong question. Not did I say something hurtful? Not are you okay? Not even did I disappear for too long? No. Her fear was about consequences. Not guilt. Not remorse. Self-preservation, pure and simple. I don't know what happened in the hallway, I said calmly. You do. She stared at me, eyes wide like she just realized she stepped into a trap no one set for her. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I'm just trying to figure out if anything happened that might look bad. Look bad to who? I asked. Her breath hitched. To you. You're the one who decides how you look, I said. She went quiet. Too quiet for someone who usually filled silence with excuses. Then she tried a different angle. Did I say anything to you? Anything that made you upset? You don't remember? I remember pieces, she whispered. I'm trying to understand. You're trying to find out what I know, I said plainly. Those aren't the same thing. She blinked hard, like the word stung. Her hands tightened around her phone. Evan, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. Then tell the truth, I said. She froze. Not because I sounded angry, I wasn't. My voice was level, even almost quiet. But the thing about silence is that it forces people to confront the noise inside themselves. And hers was deafening. She backed away again, disappearing into the bedroom for the third time. More frantic movement, more digging, more searching for proof she wasn't even sure existed. By the time she returned, her hair was a mess, her breathing ragged, her hands shaking. You're scaring me, she said. I haven't raised my voice, I replied. That's what's scary. No, what scared her was the fact that she no longer controlled the narrative. She didn't know what I heard, what I saw, what I remembered. She didn't know which version of the story she should prepare. And uncertainty is the oxygen of panic. She pressed a hand to her forehead. Evan, please, if you know something, just tell me. I'm watching, I said. You're doing all the telling. Her face crumpled, not sadness, not guilt, just fear. The fear of being caught without knowing how. She stared at me a long time, like she was trying to read a verdict, but I wasn't giving her one. Not yet. By evening, the spiral had fully taken hold. She avoided my eyes. She avoided the rooms I was in. She kept checking her phone, scrolling, deleting, checking again. It didn't matter. She'd already confessed, not with words, but with fear, and I didn't have to expose her. She was doing that just fine on her own. While Rachel spiraled through the afternoon, tearing through drawers and checking her phone like she was searching for a fire she already smelled, I stayed calm, not detached, steady. And the steadiness didn't come from the party. It came from a moment she didn't even remember. A week before, I was home early from work. Not planned, not dramatic. I finished a job ahead of schedule and came back to grab lunch. When I walked in, the house was quiet. The kind of quiet that tells you someone's on a call they don't want overheard. I heard her before I saw her. She was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, talking in that half-whisper women use when they think they're sharing a secret instead of announcing a decision. "No, he'll get over it," she said, annoyed. "He always does. That's the problem." A pause. A laugh that wasn't kind. "Honestly, he's just a placeholder until something better shows up." That word hit harder than anything she'd ever thrown at me in an argument. Not because it was cruel, she'd said worse in fights, but because it was true. Not true in reality. True in her mind. And once someone sees you that way, there's no coming back. I stood there, listening. Not angry. Not shocked. Just done. She hung up the phone, walked into the hallway, and froze when she saw me. Not because she thought I'd overheard, because she was annoyed the timing didn't suit her. The same way she got annoyed when I loaded the dishwasher the wrong way. "You're home early," she said. I nodded once. "Yeah." She never asked what I heard. She just walked past me, humming like she was trying to cover something with noise. That single moment settled something deep in me. No yelling, no confrontation, just a quiet understanding that I was finished signing up for a role I never agreed to play. I left the house 15 minutes later, went back to work, and during my lunch break, I walked into a lawyer's office 2 blocks from my job. The decision didn't feel impulsive. Felt overdue. I told the lawyer I wanted to file. He asked if I wanted to wait, think it over, and speak with my wife first. "No," I said. "File it." The paperwork was signed by the end of the day. So when I sat at the kitchen table a week later watching Rachel fall apart over her own half-remembered confession, I wasn't reacting to anything that happened at that party. I was watching the final puzzle piece slide into place. Her fear didn't bother me. Her excuses didn't matter. Her panic wasn't my problem anymore. She wasn't my wife in any way that counted. Not after I heard the truth in her own voice, unfiltered, unforced, spoken when she thought no one was listening. People think betrayal starts with cheating, but sometimes it starts with a single word. Placeholder. That was the day I stopped being angry at her. Stopped trying to fix anything. Stopped trying to make a marriage out of a performance. That was the day I left the marriage, even if the paperwork hadn't reached her hands yet. The party didn't break anything. It just confirmed what was already dead. By the time the sun started dropping, the panic had turned into something new, something practiced. Rachel came out of the bedroom freshly showered, makeup lightly done, hair brushed like she just remembered she cared about how she looked in front of me. She moved differently too. Softer steps, gentle tone, the kind of quiet sweetness people use when they think they can reset a story with a smile. "Hey," she said, leaning in the kitchen doorway with that too bright expression. "I was thinking, maybe I could make dinner tonight." She hadn't cooked dinner in months. I nodded once. "If you want to." She blinked at how neutral my voice was. There was no relief in her face, only confusion, like she expected me to jump at the olive branch she suddenly remembered existed. She busied herself in the kitchen, pulling pans out, checking the fridge, humming a little tune that didn't match her earlier panic. Every movement felt rehearsed, not natural, not real. Halfway through chopping vegetables, she touched my arm lightly. Not affection, not love, but a test. "Are we okay?" she asked. "We're here," I answered. She forced a smile. I want tonight to be good." "Then cook," I said. Her hand slipped off my arm. She kept working, glancing back at me every few seconds to see if I was watching her. I wasn't. I stayed seated at the table, scrolling through emails, calm in a way she couldn't read anymore. She plated the food carefully, setting everything on the table like it was a peace offering. When she sat down, she waited for me to take the first bite. "As good as always," I said after tasting it. She sighed with relief too dramatically. "I'm glad." Dinner passed in polite conversation she controlled. Small talk, meaningless details, soft laughs she pushed out like she'd been coached to sound gentle. She was performing tenderness instead of feeling it. I didn't call her out, didn't question it, didn't play along. I just let her act. After dinner, she cleared the plates immediately, another performance, and stood beside me while I rinsed my glass at the sink. "Evan," she said quietly, I want to reconnect with you. I know I've been distant and difficult, and I just want us to get back on track. I turned off the faucet and looked at her. What track is that? Her mouth opened then closed, like she hadn't prepared for a follow-up question. You know, she said, eyes darting. The one where we're good. Define good, I said. She couldn't. Instead, she reached out again, fingertips touching my forearm in a way that used to mean something. Now it felt like someone was checking a pulse. I miss us, she said. You miss control, I replied. Her breath caught. I don't, that's not fair. It's accurate. She stepped back, face shifting between hurt and strategy, unsure which mask to put on. I'm trying, Evan, she whispered. I know, I said. You're performing. That word hit harder than any accusation could have. She shook her head. No, I'm not. I'm being serious. I'm trying to fix things. Only because you're scared, I said calmly. Not because you're sorry. Her eyes filled with something that wasn't sadness. It was a calculation failing. The familiar tools weren't working. Tears, tenderness, softness. She kept switching tactics like someone flipping through instructions that didn't match the situation. I want us to be okay, she said again, voice cracking at the edges. We're not, I said, and we haven't been for a long time. Her shoulders dropped, not in defeat, in realization. For the first time all day, she understood something wasn't going back to normal. She wasn't losing the argument. She was losing me. She stepped closer again, grasping at the last script she knew. Evan, please, I'm trying to show you I care. You're trying to protect yourself, I said. There's a difference. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. But nothing about me had changed. The only difference was that she no longer had access to the version of me who tried to fix everything. She had lost that man, and I wasn't bringing him back. The guilt was hers. The calm was mine, and I wasn't trading. She approached me after dinner with her hands clasped like she was holding something fragile, maybe herself. Her voice was soft, rehearsed, trembling just enough to look sincere. Evan, can we talk? I nodded once. Go ahead. We sat in the living room. She chose the couch. I chose the armchair across from her, a distance she noticed immediately. She exhaled shakily. I feel like things have been off today. They have. I want to fix that. Then start talking. She blinked, thrown off by how direct I was. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers like the answer might be hiding there. I want to apologize, she said. For what? She hesitated. Too long. Way too long. Finally. For anything I might have said last night. Might have? I asked. Her throat tightened. She tried again. For anything that upset you. That's not an apology, I said. That's a blanket statement. She flinched but kept going. Evan, I was drunk. I don't remember everything. I don't know what you heard. And I just want to move past it. There's nothing to move past if you don't know what happened. Her breath caught. Panic returned, crawling up the back of her neck. Okay, she whispered. Then just tell me what I said. No, I replied, calm as stone. What do you mean, no? I'm not feeding you a narrative to hide behind. She stared at me like I'd suddenly switched languages. She opened her mouth, closed it, and tried again. I'm trying to take responsibility, she insisted. For what? I asked again. Name it. Her silence was the loudest thing in the room. She tried reaching for tears, not loudly, but subtly, the way she did when she needed sympathy without admitting guilt. Her voice got softer, thinner. Evan, please, I'm trying to apologize. You can't apologize for something you won't acknowledge. Her face crumpled. Not with grief, but with frustration at losing control of the narrative. She wasn't used to this version of me. She leaned forward. Evan, I didn't cheat. I didn't say you did. But you think I did. I think your behavior speaks louder than your memory. She swallowed hard. I swear nothing happened. What exactly are you swearing that didn't happen? I asked. She froze again. Caught. People who are innocent say specifics. People who are guilty say nothing happened because details expose them. I just want to know what you think I did, she whispered. And I want to know what you remember. I told you, it's fuzzy. Then why are you apologizing? That question gutted her. She stared at me, eyes glossy, breathing shallow. She looked like someone who walked into a room expecting a script, only to find it blank. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered. I'm not asking you to say anything, I replied. I'm watching what you choose to say on your own. Her face twisted. Frustration, fear, desperation, all fighting for space. I didn't do anything wrong, she snapped suddenly. Then why are you terrified? I asked calmly. Her mouth opened, then closed again, defeated by her own instinct to lie. She leaned back on the couch, hands trembling. Evan, just tell me what I said last night. No. Her breath broke. Why? Because if you don't remember your actions, you don't get to tailor your apologies. She covered her face with both hands. For the first time, she looked truly lost. Not because she regretted anything, because she couldn't control how the truth surfaced. When she finally lowered her hands, she whispered, I feel like you know something, and I don't know what it is. You do know, I said. You're just scared to say it. She stared at me, eyes wide with a realization she didn't want. The version of me she could manipulate was gone, and she couldn't navigate the conversation without him. After our talk dissolved into her confusion and my silence, the house felt thick with a tension she couldn't climb out of. She hovered nearby, waiting for me to soften, to offer her some foothold back into the version of our marriage she still believed she controlled. But softness wasn't coming. I wasn't angry. I wasn't wounded. I was finished. Around 8 that night, I stood from the chair and walked down the hallway toward our bedroom. I heard her follow, hesitant, cautious, like she was afraid of the answer but needed to chase it anyway. Evan? She whispered from the doorway. I opened the dresser drawer, the second one down, the one where I'd kept the envelope for a week. I pulled it out, placed it on the table beside the lamp, and stepped back. Her face blanched. What is that? Divorce papers, I said. Her knees buckled slightly, and she grabbed the doorframe with one hand. Why? When did you? A week ago. Her breath left her in one sharp exhale. A week? Evan, what are you talking about? Why would you? You called me a placeholder. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Just the widening of her eyes, the splitting of her expression between recognition and terror. Evan, I didn't mean. You meant it enough to say it, I said, out loud, to someone else. She stumbled forward, almost tripping over her own panic. Evan, please, that was, I don't remember. You meant it, I repeated, and that was enough. Her hands pressed against her chest as if trying to slow her heartbeat. You can't do this. This is a mistake. We can talk about this. We can fix it. We can. No, I said, as calmly as if I were stating the weather. We can't. She moved closer, reaching out like touching my arm would somehow stop the truth from landing. I stepped back. She froze. You filed for divorce, she whispered, voice barely holding together. Before the party. Before last night. Before anything. That's right. Why didn't you talk to me first? You already did, I said. When you said I was a placeholder. Her face folded in on itself. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they didn't change anything. Not the air. Not the moment. Not me. Evan, she said, voice cracking. I was drunk when I said that. I didn't mean it. You were sober when you said it, I replied. Sober when you dismissed me. Sober when you compare me to people who aren't in your life anymore. Sober when you treated me like someone who would always be there no matter what you threw at me. She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking. But we can work through this. No, I said again. We already did the work. You just didn't do any of it. Her legs gave out a little, and she sat on the edge of the bed like gravity finally caught her. She picked up the envelope with trembling fingers, staring at her name printed beside mine. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's as real as your words were," I said. She looked up at me, tears streaking her face. "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "I didn't give up," I said. "I ended something that ended long before I admitted it." She shook her head, devastated and desperate. "I didn't cheat, Evan. I swear. I didn't." "This isn't about the party," I said. "That was just confirmation." "Then what is it about?" she asked, voice breaking. "Respect," I said. "And the fact that you stopped having any for me a long time ago." She sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking. "But guilt isn't the same as remorse, and fear isn't the same as love." I didn't comfort her. I didn't touch her. I didn't take back a single word. The papers sat between us like the quiet truth they were. When she finally lifted her head, eyes red and swollen, she whispered, "Evan, please don't do this." I already did. And the silence that followed was the cleanest moment in the room all day. She was still crying when I turned toward the doorway. Not loud tears, not dramatic ones, just the soft, broken kind that come when someone realizes the story is no longer theirs to control. "Evan," she said, voice shaking, "please, don't leave. We can talk. We can fix this. I can be better. I will be better." I stopped in the doorway, not from hesitation, not from doubt, but because I wanted to look at her one last time with the same clarity I'd earned the hard way. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped, hands gripping the divorce papers like they were a lifeline instead of the truth. "Rachel," I said quietly, "this isn't sudden. You just never thought I'd be the one to end it." Her lips trembled. "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "If I wanted to punish you, I would have stayed." She flinched and the room went still. She stood slowly, taking a step toward me. "I can change," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." "That's the problem," I said. "You only say that when you're scared." She tried to close the distance again, but I stepped back. The movement broke her in a way anger never could. "You don't love me anymore," she said, voice cracking. I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence sit between us, heavy and honest. Then, "Love isn't the issue. Respect is." She covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. "Please don't do this. Please." I shook my head once. I already did. There was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to salvage. Nothing left to pretend. I turned toward the hallway. Behind me, her voice hit one last desperate note. "Evan, if you walk out that door, it's over." I paused for half a second. Not because I was reconsidering, because I wanted to acknowledge the truth of her words. "It's over," I said. "I'm just leaving now." I walked down the hallway with steady steps, feeling more like myself with each one. No anger, no sadness, no confusion, just a quiet, grounded certainty. At the front door, I grabbed my jacket. The house behind me felt lighter than it ever had, like it had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. I opened the door. For a moment I listened, not for her footsteps, not for her voice, just for the absence, the clean break, the silence of a life no longer tethered to someone who saw me as temporary. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. The click wasn't loud, but it landed with finality, the kind you feel more than hear. Walking to my car, I didn't look back. Not once. There was nothing behind me worth returning to. As I drove away, the night was calm. No shaking hands. No racing pulse. Just steady breathing and a clear horizon. That's the part people don't tell you about endings. The relief is quieter than the pain. I wasn't escaping something. I was walking toward myself again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.